Well, for the last 4 weeks, so now this is week number 5, we've been reviewing Unity Basics, and we've been going through some of the terms that are up here, and we've crafted a mission statement and everything. And at the beginning of each service since week 1, I've been doing a little recap, but instead of going through it and really using a whole lot of words, I've invited Penelope up here, and we're going to do a little skit. So pay attention, because all of these very high and mighty terms are revealed to you in the truth of this script. As soon as she gets a microphone, because everybody deserves to be heard.
Hi. I'm really new to Unity.
You're
new to Unity.
You're so new, you might want to push that button.
The power button. I'm really new to Unity.
You're so new.
And I understand you're a Unity minister.
Well, yes, I am.
Well, I am interested in learning more about Unity. Or is it new thought?
Well, it's both.
Okay, tell me, is there a fundamental belief in Unity?
There is only one.
Great! Tell me about your belief.
There is only one.
It's nice to know that there is only one. What is it?
Well, that's it.
That's what?
That's our belief.
Are you going to tell me your belief?
There is only one.
You've said that before.
And we believe it.
You do.
Every bit of it.
So all you're going to tell me about your belief is there is one.
Well, what else could you want to know?
I want to know about the spiritual belief of a unitic. That's what you call yourself. A unitic.
Right. There is only one.
So you're not going to tell me. Is there a secret handshake or something?
Well, there are no secrets. Everything is open to everyone.
Including what you believe?
Well, especially that.
So what can you tell me about your belief?
There is only one.
And that's all.
That's all there can be.
And you think that's all I need to know?
Well, for most people, that's enough.
Don't you have a theology or a dogma?
We have none.
You have nuns?
No, we have none.
Do they wear habits?
No, in Unity, we have Habitudes.
Is there a book I can learn about Unity?
Oh, there are a lot of books about Unity.
Great. You have a lot of books and you can't even tell me what you believe.
There is one.
One book, not a lot of books.
No, there is one, and there are a lot of books.
I'm not getting anywhere here. Is there a magazine about Unity?
There is one.
Forgive me. I must not have been clear. Is there a magazine about Unity?
Yes.
What is it?
Unity.
Yes?
Yes.
Unity?
Yes.
The magazine?
Yes.
The Unity magazine is called Yes.
No.
And what is the magazine called?
Unity.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the name of the magazine.
Yes.
So when I want the Unity magazine, I ask for yes.
No.
Oh,
Of course not. We have no yes.
I'm having some trouble following this. This is like a song about bananas.
I'm here to help.
I'm getting a headache.
Oh, we can help with that.
You can help with a headache?
Oh, we can help with all sorts of things.
Wow. What do you do for a headache?
Affirmative prayer.
What's your prayer for a headache?
Affirmative.
Yes, I have a headache. I thought you were going to pray for me.
Affirmatively and positively.
So I positively affirm my headache.
Absolutely.
Isn't Absolute a vodka?
No, vodka will not help with that.
Then tell me about the prayer for a headache.
It's a positive affirmation.
That's it?
Absolutely.
But that won't help with my headache.
Affirmative prayer works wonders for a headache.
And who administers this prayer? A bartender?
Of course not. Prayer is provided by a licensed Unity teacher or a minister.
Really? How does someone become a licensed teacher or Unity minister?
They consciously expand their consciousness.
So how many licensed Unity teachers and minister consciousnesses do you have?
Well, we have 3, but there's only one.
There are 3 consciousnesses,
Well, actually, there's a whole collection of consciousnesses.
but only one consciousness.
Yeah, of course.
Only one?
There's only one.
Is this consciousness expansion brand new?
It's been taught for years.
So after all these years, ultimately, how many consciousnesses have you got?
There's only one.
Only one.
Yes, only one.
And you're proud of this.
It's what sets us apart.
Do you have a lot of ministers?
There are many of us.
Do you ever have 2 ministers speak at the same event?
Sure.
How do you decide who's on second?
Well, who's on first? But that's a whole other story.
Thanks for your time. I think I'm going to find a pagan so I can get some straight answers.
And that just about sums up what Unity's about. But you can't go home yet. Are you willing to consider that our success, our spiritual unfoldment, our spiritual maturity, our magnificence, our transformation is not dependent upon our personality? Yes, but then there's a whole bunch of books in libraries, and there are even more books in bookstores that say that it is. But in spiritual community, as some of you have already stated, in unity, we see things differently. We don't believe that our unfoldment, our maturity, our spiritual magnificence is dependent upon whether we're an introvert or an extrovert, or whether we're a leader or a follower, or whether we're using our ego or subverting our ego, or whether we're forceful or whether we're submissive. We believe in unity that when we see, when we discern, when we're able to tune into that spiritual pattern of perfection that's our birthright, that Christ within, our divinity, we then become more expansive and we transform in wonderful ways. That transformation in our lives that's really more and more of an experience of the kingdom of heaven. But our personality actually dictates what that transformation looks like. So let's say I had a very solemn personality. And I'm asking you to use your imagination. But let's say I had a very solemn personality. I would sit in meditation and I would own and I would read holy books and I would say, and my transformation would be, it'd be very solemn. But let's say I had a personality that was sassy. And I meditated on one of those big exercise balls. And that's how I meditated. And when I sang really snappy unity songs like, "It is the cry of my heart to follow." Ooh, ooh, ooh. You know, and then when I read holy books, I would say, "Oh my goodness, this is so fantastic. You're kidding me. Wow." I would have my transformation experience that way. What's the common denominator between all the different personalities?
Have a transformation.
Yeah, that we have transformation, but the transformation comes from our individuality. The transformation comes from that spiritual pattern for perfection. It comes from the Christ within. It comes from our divinity. So how we get on the ride is our personality. And there are way more personalities between solemn and sassy, and beyond, actually, solemn and sassy. There are personalities that are joyful, personalities that are forceful, personalities that are whiny, personalities that are sensitive, right? There's all kinds of, you can just shout out a few personalities, right? There are personalities that are logical. But what we find when we take a look at our personalities is embedded within those personalities are habits that express the very personality of the personality. So if we had a whiny personality, we would have a habit of complaining. And if we had a joyful personality, we would have a habit of laughing. And if we had a sensitive personality, we might have a habit of crying. But all of those are outside there, and they're vehicles that lead us to our individuality, that one common denominator. When my kids were little, and I'm pretty sure they were 3 and 5 at the time, I have 2 sons, and we were sitting at the dinner table, and one of them said, "Mom, what's a habit?" And I was like, wow, they're asking me a mom question. Well, a habit is something that we use like a shortcut. It's either to save time or to get us going somewhere quicker so we don't have to think about a whole bunch of stuff. It's just something that we do either out of laziness or efficiency, and sometimes habits support our highest good. And the 3-year-old goes to the kitchen, he pulls out a drawer, he gets a stool, he puts a stool right next to the drawer, he gets on the drawer, and he goes, "This is a habit." And he closed the drawer with his hip. And he said, "Mom, this is a habit you do all the time." And I was like, wow, I should pat myself on the back for giving such a succinct definition of habits. But I wasn't even aware that I would, get the silverware out, bump the drawer, and then I'd get a serving spoon out and dump the drawer, napkins or whatever, and I was bumping the drawer all the time. Well, think about all the good habits my sons learned. I mean, really, there were good habits like take a bath every day and brush your teeth before you go to bed, and before you fall asleep, make sure you share your list of gratitudes for the day. But then there were the not so good habits that I'm sure they learned too. Those are the kind of habits that I called opportunities for growth. Because when you think about it, habits are a double-edged sword. They help us, and then they really help us. They expand our capacity for goodness, or they invite us to have a growth opportunity. And there's all kinds of adjectives for growth opportunities. But they all come from habits. And when we consciously connect our habits to our individuality, rather than whatever personality we're feeling that day, when we can consciously connect our habits to our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings, our attitudes, we come up with habits that support the successful magnificence of who we were born to be. Yes? Yes. Say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I did not coin the phrase habitudes. It didn't even actually start in Unity. It was coined by a science of mind minister named Harry Morgan Moses. Harry Morgan Moses has a church in Burbank, and he's written books, and including one on Habitudes, 25 ways to expand your spirituality and your capacity for goodness. But he says some really amazing things. And the first amazing thing he says, "I was not born to be average, and neither were you." Whoa, guess what's coming next? Turn to somebody who's next to you and tell them, "I was not born to be average, and neither were you." I was not born to be average, and neither were you. How wonderful is this? Woo-hoo! The second thing he says that I really love, he says, "You cannot learn if you are convinced that you already know."
Yes.
I know a lot of things. You know a lot of things. But if we're convinced that we know everything, we can no longer be open to learning. I relish being a lifelong learner. I know some things, but there's so much more to learn. You know some things, and there's so much more to learn. Habitudes. Harry Morgan Moses says this: a major aspect of creating habitudes is being able to think in new ways about subjects which are familiar to us. A good habitude causes the spontaneous first reaction of our mind to move us in the direction of our fulfillment. We can layer our habitudes in such a way that our responding and acting is in a forward, life-giving manner, and it becomes as natural as breathing. I'm thinking that most of you are familiar with Stephen Covey, 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. It was published in 1990. It sold millions and millions and millions of copies all around the world in I don't know how many languages. But Stephen Covey's ideas about habits fit perfectly. They dovetail perfectly with habitudes. The first kinds of habits that Stephen Covey talks about are habits of self-mastery. And when we have habits of self-mastery, they move us in a direction of our fulfillment. When we have habits of synergy, when we have habits of honoring the people, the other people that we are in relationship in our world, when we have those kinds of habits, we're moving forward in a life-giving manner. And finally, the last one he talks about is sharpening the saw, that continuous learning, habits of continuous learning. And here it is right here. It's being able to think in new ways. Habitudes work when we work them. Habitudes work when we work them. Would you say that with me, please? Habitudes work when we work them. And thank goodness they are not rocket science. They're actually very simple to use. But it is in our application of them that brings us that kingdom of heaven. It brings us that joy. It brings us that emergent goodness of life. Application comes in 3 easy steps. Number 1, notice and observe. Awareness is always the first step. Being aware of what we're feeling, being aware of what we're thinking, being aware and noticing if we're stuck or noticing if we're fluid. There are lots of names for step 1. It's being that detached observer. It's about being that compassionate witness. It's noticing what we're noticing. It's standing guard at the portals of our mind. Awareness is the first step. And the second step is choosing a fresh alternative. Making a different choice. Benjamin Franklin says, in order to conquer a bad habit, you must be strong. Years ago, I quit smoking. Years ago. Not so many years ago, I quit drinking. Who besides me in this room has quit something? Who has quit something? Most of us have quit something. So we are proof, not just Mindy Tucker standing up here, but other people in this room, almost everybody in this room has quit something. We are strong and we can conquer any bad habit with a fresh alternative. Step 1 and step 2 to me is like catching the drift and making a shift. Catching a drift and making the shift. So say with me, catching the drift and making a shift. Then step 3 is this. Change one small thing. Change one small thing and see what goodness comes out of it. Changing one small thing is going to the grocery store by driving a different route. In Wilmington, going to a different grocery store is really easy. There are so many grocery stores. When you're in the grocery store, you can change one small thing. You can buy one thing that you've never eaten before. Try it out. You can go to Barnes & Noble, or you can go to a department store and go to a section you've never been in. If you're a woman, go into the men's socks. If you're a man, you can go into ladies' perfume. Maybe you've already been there. I don't know. But changing one small thing. When you go to the beach, instead of parking in lot number 3, park in lot number 4. If you go to the beach and you want to park in the same lot, park in the same lot. But when you get to the sand, turn left instead of turning right. Change one small thing. Take a class on something you've never done before. Write a shopping list or a gratitude list with your non-dominant hand. Eat your lunch with your non-dominant hand. It doesn't have to be that you go home and take everything in your closet and throw it away. It's not a big deal. It's changing one small thing. And then looking for the good that comes out of that. Maybe your different route to the grocery store will take you by a patch of daffodils. Daffodils are already out. And they're cheerful, and they're bright, and they're beautiful, and they are an expression of the kingdom of heaven. Charles Fillmore says this, pronounce every experience good and of God, and by that mental attitude you will call forth only the good. What seemed error will disappear, and only the good will remain. This is the law, and no one can break it. We cannot learn if we consider that we already know everything. We cannot have an experience of wholeness if we consider that we're broken. We cannot have an experience of the kingdom of heaven, of the magnificence that we were born to be, if we already think we're enlightened. This is about changing one small thing. It's not about sitting under a tree for 1,000 years. It's changing one small thing and seeing good in it. Repeat often. And if you can't do it forward, do it backwards. Go, oh my gosh, here's some good in my life. This good in my life came because I did one thing differently. And why did I do one thing differently? It's because I had a commitment to a fresh alternative. I must have had a commitment to a fresh alternative because, oh my goodness, I noticed and observed my feelings. And if I'm noticing and observing my feelings, I can actually identify my habitudes. And are these habitudes supporting the expansion of my capacity for goodness? Are they allowing me to redirect my good for my highest best? Repeat often. You're worth it. We're all worth it. And where does noticing begin with? Noticing begins with awareness. Awareness begins in meditation. And meditation begins with prayer. So let's pray. Let's sing our way into meditation with prayer.